definitely let's go ahead and get started. First off, again, I just want to thank everybody for coming on a Friday afternoon. I know that can always be an interesting time, but I do appreciate everybody taking a moment to uh, get a little bit on the construction payment tracker. First, I want to introduce who I am and who Sandra is. My name is Alec Dorsling. I'm a real estate transformation consultant here at Northspyre. Been here for about a year and a half now. Been involved with a lot of really new and exciting features that we have coming, including the construction payment tracker. It's been a fantastic thing. Before Northspyre, I was actually in the construction industry. So I have been a general contractor as well in the past, as someone who has done owner pay apps and kind of done this pencil rec process with different scans and emails and trying to keep track of those works in progress. I know exactly what it can look like, but now with Northspyre, I know what it can also look like in a much better fashion. So that's a little bit about me. Sandra, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Alec. Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra. I'm a product manager here at Northspire. And unlike Alec, my background is more on the tech side, so things like UX design and information systems. I have been in prop tech for a few years now, and I've been building a whole ton of new features behind the scenes alongside my team. So really excited to show you some of those updates today.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing we want to touch on as well, same way that I'm here and Sandra's here, our entire team here at Northspire is really here to support you, both from RETCs like myself, who are dedicated to your company. We also have the concierge team. Concierge team is going to be that little chat bubble at the bottom right that you see. They're the same people that we can ask tech support questions to. It's the exact same team. They help us out with error codes all the time, or if something isn't lining up or showing exactly how it should be, it's the exact same group of people that we use internally that you get access to externally. Beyond that, we also have our knowledge base. If you've never clicked into the knowledge base, it has over 350 articles about each feature inside of Northspire, from both the basics to really specifics. We've got helpful pictures, helpful graphics, and helpful GIFs as well, that you can see exactly what you need to be doing as we get around there. So just a couple things. As we go, I also really want to encourage you guys, if you have another screen that you can open, feel free to open Northspire and click along with us. A lot of times those kind of learning objectives are a lot better in the moment. If you're clicking along, it's that muscle memory. We can show you exactly where we're going and show you just how easy it is as well. So I'd really encourage you to open that up and click along with us if you want. As Sandra mentioned, we do have questions and answers at the end. If you want to put those into the questions and answer box, we can get to those towards the end. But before that, we're going to do a little bit of an overview of what that feature looks like, and then specifically go into the actual training and kind of how we set those up as well. So that's going to be what we're working on today. First thing I want to get to is when you might actually use a construction payment tracker. The point and purpose of the construction payment tracker is really to solve that pain of dealing with your general contractor. We've all been there before where, did you get the latest markup? And this line isn't approved. Can you please update this on your 702 or your 703? I got the signed copy, but that was the wrong copy. Did you catch the scan? Did you get my latest markup? Yes, no, wait, I have part of this. We have the wrong page. It wasn't the same PDF attachment. Just that whole process of trying to get the contractor pay app completed and reviewed and approved for your draw and for them, it can just be a pain. It can be a little bit of a headache. It's not a very direct process. The purpose of the construction payment tracker and when you can use that is when you want to resolve that. You want to have it be easier. You want to have better control and visibility into what your contract status is, what your work in progress is, how much have we completed. Doing a pencil rec process is, a lot easier when we're both looking at the same window in the same portal. You can have your screen, the contractor can have their screen, where it's the same piece of information, the data updates in live time, and now we don't have to go find a scan. We don't have to go find, do we get the latest markup? That's really when you want to use a construction payment tracker. You can also use one as well if you've got an internal general contractor or you're your own general contractor and you want to work directly with subs. We do have a way where you can have subcontractors impacting only their scopes of work. And that's really when you want to be using that construction payment tracker to kind of make that process easier, more predictable, quicker, more direct outcomes. So that's really when you want to use that. As we go through today, I kind of want to mention a few different learning outcomes and objectives that we have for you guys. Our hope and our goal is that everyone that's here can leave today with a few different items. One, the ability to create scopes of work and those descriptions of work inside a construction payment tracker. How to set one up yourself and actually plug your information in. Once you get those lines done, Really hope that you're also able to control and manage the base contract totals, as well as creating any change orders. We also want to make sure that you have the ability and confidence to invite your general contractor to the construction payment tracker. We'll show you exactly how we can do that. Once that contractor's plugged in values, we want to make sure you have the ability to review, approve, accept, comment, all of that on each line item as you're doing that pencil rec process. And as we go from there, we're hopeful that at the very end, you can close that pay app, have that generate as an invoice to the data inbox, and it'll be the same Northspyre process that you all know. I'll pass it over to Sandra.
All right, thanks, Alec. So we understand that tracking hard costs is crucial to any project, and construction costs can eat up to 85% of your total budget. That's millions of dollars that you might not fully understand. That's a lot of money to track in error-prone spreadsheets or to rely on a third party to track. Our construction payment tracker and our new hard cost tracking tools will allow you to see exactly where that money is going, get deeper insights into each contractor and vendor, and even work collaboratively with vendors on a digitized pencil requisition process to capture every change and every detail in an approval process. So with that said, let's jump into it. So I'm going to start off with a brief overview of what the product looks like and how it works, and then I'll start the setup process where I'll cue all of you to follow along and set up your own construction payment tracker if you haven't done so before. So this is the payment tracker that I have open on my screen. If you've never used this payment tracker before, you'll notice it's structured very similar to a pay application. So instead of having to track your general contractor's pay app in scattered spreadsheets where you might not notice a payment error that costs you thousands of dollars and takes hours to fix, our solution is proactive and it auto-calculates your data for you to prevent errors. So you'll enter in your work in place every month. Let's say on ornamental metal, I want to add a work in place amount, and you can do this really easily and quickly by doing a dollar amount or a percentage. So maybe I'll say this is 10% complete, and we'll apply that to the table. That auto-calculates automatically, and if I had set a retainage percentage before, that percentage would hold on for this line item when I add a work in place amount. So let's say I'm holding a 10% retainage, and that gets very quickly calculated to your table as well. Let's see here. We've added 10%. I don't know what I clicked on before, but just ignore that. We also have a very smart retainage calculation. And so we auto-calculate your retainage released really, really easily. So you'll notice retainage you can also calculate by dollar amount or percentage, but I could decrease my percentage, or I could decrease my release retainage simply by decreasing my amount of percentage held. So maybe I want to cut that in half or decrease all the way to 0 at the end of a project. That would auto-calculate the dollar amount that I want to release based off of the amount of retainage that I've been holding and how long I've been holding it for. So a lot of really smart calculations going on the back end here. I know we have some folks from the accounting team, so I do want to mention that this translates really seamlessly over to an invoice that flows into the data inbox, which Alec will be showing you a little bit later, and then transfers seamlessly to your third-party accounting integrations as well, whether that's Yardi or Sage 300 or something else. So if all of that sounds great, I'm going to show you how you can get set up. So on this payment tracker, and if you have one set up already, you'll notice you have the ability to now add multiple construction payment trackers. I'm going to do this by hitting this new button on the bottom left of this dropdown. But if you don't see this option, or if you've never set up the construction payment tracker before, you're going to find the link under your power tools, under this construction section. And if you click on this construction payment tracker link and it's completely blank, you'll see a button on the middle of the page that says set your budget line. So instead, you can click that if you've never set it up before. I'm going to opt to go new up at the top. You can give it a name, whether this might be an architect or design contract that you want to track, whether it's part of your general contractor contract that you want to split out. You can outline all of that in the top there and then add your budget line. You also have the ability to separate your budget line out by scope. So if you had like a general contractor fee or something you want to track separately, you could do this as well, but this will serve as a default for your entire payment tracker. And then you have the ability to add your general contractor company. I'm going to add Stellar Structures. And then the default retainage percentage I mentioned before. You can set this percentage as like 10% or 7.5, whatever you typically start as. And then that will set every line item that you create on this table to that percent automatically. And then you won't have to touch that percentage again until you're releasing retainage, which makes it really, really easy to track. I'll just say this is 10%. And then this last option down here for generating separate invoices by subcontractor is also one of our recent updates. So if you're a self-performing general contractor, you can now separate each scope of work, or if this is tied to a different subcontractor, you have the ability to generate a separate invoice for each of these. So I would have like 4 different invoices in my data inbox tied to each of these scopes of work so that you can then pay out those subs separately. You can send this to your accounting systems, all of that. So I won't check this option so that we can see that whole generated invoice as one. But if you're a self-performing general contractor, this is always an option that you have. So I'm going to hit save, and then we can navigate over to the payment tracker that we just created and start adding line items to that. So the next step would be adding scopes of work, adding your descriptions of work, and then we're going to bump it back over to the general contractor and show you sort of that approval process between me and Alec. So Alec's going to handle some of that setup, and I'll pass things on over to him.
Alrighty, so like Sandra demonstrated, the moment that she was able to create construction payment tracker, this is payment tracker number 3 for our purposes. This is really what you want to do, and the step that you take as soon as you have a schedule of values ready to go. We're going to generate those lines as though this is pay app number 1, and then as we close pay periods, it will track pay period 1, pay period 2, pay period 3, pay period 4. And why we want to do that is it's a lot easier to track exactly where you're going, and you get the value out of that, the retainage tracking, the work in progress tracking, straight from the beginning. Then you don't have to think about any more paperwork, any more tracking it, scans, the pencil markups, any of that. It all happens right here inside of Northspyre. The way that we want to set up our scopes and descriptions of work, I'm just going to do a couple for example today, but it's very quick and it's very easy. We can match and mirror exactly what you have on your SOV already by adding a scope of work over here. The scope is going to be the main header, so think site work, and if you have site work broken out across a few different line items, we can group all of that inside of site work, the same way Sandra mentioned, where you can have a separate budget line for different scopes if that's how your ACR is set up. You can either choose an individual company, or this blue button will allow you to pre-fill that with your general contractor. We're going to take Stellar Structures the same way that it was set up previously. I'm going to go ahead and click next. This is where we can tie again to a specific budget line for this scope. So for instance, I'm just going to tie everything back to our GMP. Scope of work category. If I start typing in site, I'm going to pick site improvements, exterior improvements. Scope of work name, I can make this something separate. These scope of work categories are really helpful for things like pre-development when you go back to a portfolio analysis. We've got a couple different webinars coming up next week for that as well, if you'd like to join in for those. If we have a contract with this contractor, we can also pair these directly to that. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. This is where I can invite my general contractor directly to a construction payment tracker. If I have an email address for the manager on this project, I can invite them to where they'll be able to fill out the values just by plugging in their email address here, and then we can send the invite. For today, I'm just going to go to creating descriptions of work. You'll see it created a drop-down right here on the left. This is my site work category, and here's where I can add descriptions of work. This is going to be the individual line items on my schedule of values. I'm going to fill out just a couple of them, and you'll see just how easy it is to do this. So we've got earthwork. I'm going to make up a couple numbers here. I'm selecting base contract here because this is the first pay app. If I ever had a change order that was directly on site work, and I've executed owner change order number 1 for site work, I can either tie it directly to my site work scope, or I know some people also like to have a separate category down at the bottom of their pay app for change orders. Either way of these work, and we can add those change orders at later pay periods as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple descriptions of work here as we go, so we can have a good example. You'll see how quick and easy this is going. As soon as I'm done with this scope of work, if I need to add a new one, I can click done. And now I've got site work set up. Now I need to add a concrete scope of work. So I'm going to go back to adding a scope of work. Company name is still going to be my GC. If I had individual subcontractors, you could pick a site work contractor and a concrete subcontractor, however you'd like. The budget line is still going to be my GMP on my ACR for this project. I just have all my hard costs and all my contractor costs on one budget line. This is going to be concrete. Again, if I have a different subcontractor, I can plug in their email address right there, send an invite to that specific subcontractor, and then keep moving forward. So for concrete, let's say we have foundations or this. And see. Making up numbers, for example, but you can see just how quickly and easily I can fill out my entire schedule of values. And then once I'm ready and once I've set up the entire pay app and my entire schedule of values, and I've invited my contractor, now I'm ready and waiting for the contractor to fill out those values on pay app 1. As we go from pay app 1 to pay app 2 to pay app 3, I have the chance to review that. For the contractor side, I'm going to send it back over to Sandra real quick.
All right. So this is the part that's going to be a little bit trickier to follow along with. Anything that I'm doing on my screen as a general contractor, you can do as a developer as well. So it doesn't have to be on this screen. You know, as I edit these work in place amounts, retainage amounts, you can do as well. But this is what the general contractor view will look like. You can see it's highlighted at the top. So I switched logins here, logged in as a GC user. So this is what your user would see if you invited them to collaborate with you on this process. And so we can show you what that approval workflow process looks like. So you can see these are all the line items that Alec just added. These are all flagged with this little updated tag, and you can see the number of items that were updated. So each of these just have one new line on them, and that's very clear to the user. And so we can then come into this period, and I'm going to say, as a general contractor, I did 20% of earthwork this month. And you can see that automatically converts to a dollar amount really quickly. I could also say, I did $10,000. Let me make sure I get the right amount of zeros there. And this, we had a problem. Maybe I was supposed to get more than $10,000 of work done at this pace. So I want to leave a comment for Alec, letting him know. So we had a problem with maybe the northeast corner. And I leave a comment there, and as well as the working place amount will update. And then you can see the retainage held this period also updates automatically because I set that initial 10% when I was setting up the payment tracker. So I don't have to worry about retainage again unless I want to decrease that percentage. Come down here, say this one is also 10% complete. And we'll give this one a work in place amount of 20%. Oh, 21%. And so I can fill all those in really easily. I can add any backup documentation. So this is where your general contractor would upload any lien waivers, their notarized pay applications, all of that stuff. Let me just make sure I have a document pulled up here. You can select a file to upload. I'll just go to my recents. Okay. That one's not loading, so I'll just upload this one. And this is the G702 and G703. So I'll check those boxes so your general contractor or you can identify any of those files that they're uploading. And again, you can still follow along on this part. You'll see the same documents button and be able to do the exact same process. So I've uploaded those documents. Alec, you won't see this right now. Alec actually gets an email when I upload these documents, letting him know that I've submitted these. And then I can, I could go in here, I could change further numbers. I'm going to call it good for now. If everything's said and done at the end of the month, I could hit this finalize pay period button, which kicks it back to Alec, says, hey, I'm ready for this to be reviewed. I'll leave it as is for now if I wanted to come back and make more changes later this month. But we'll show you now what things will look like over on the developer side and how those changes reflect in his portal.
Share my screen right back. You might actually be surprised to see that this is not something that was said previously. I watched this happen in live time as Sandra was inputting information. I remember doing the email scan process and you got to wait for somebody to complete something here and there. Right as she was filling it in, I was watching it on my screen that you can see right here, and I see the values that she's plugged in. So she's saying that she's completed $28,000 worth of earthwork this month. You can see the retainage held this period auto-calculated, and it also updates my total retainage balance. I can say yes or no. The earthwork, in my opinion, looks good. We've been out there, we've seen everything. This is good to go. On the grading, I can see as well that there was a comment left. We had a problem with the northeast corner. If I want to respond to that comment, I can open the thread. I can always lay out comments as I go. I can also get all of my comments aggregated across the construction payment tracker in one location, simply by clicking out each one of these as we go. If everything looks good here, I do want to highlight not everything is just work that was completed. Sometimes we do have materials stored as well. Under our columns in the top right, I do have the option to add a material stored column. That material stored column can also show up on the contractor side if there was work not completed, but materials that were bought, they're stored in a warehouse. A lot of times that can either be 50% or whatever the payment rate for that material stored is. They can fill that out as well. It's going to aggregate into its complete and stored. Any retainage that needs to be applied to that as well will still get updated. And then pay period over pay period. Now I'm not trying to track, okay, what was written on this one and analyze and compare. I think we've all been there where a retainage amount or a work complete amount got updated somewhere and it was a pencil slip somewhere, and now it's thrown off all of our numbers. Pay period over pay period, just by entering these values, all of that is tracked right away. All of that has great controls because it's a programmed value. We're just controlling the inputs and we all see those inputs. And I don't have to go chasing down the latest update. If there's documents added, I can click those documents. I can see exactly what was added and updated. Everything looks good to go. If I'm good with this pay period, we'll say that everything is completed. I can click finalize. As I finalize and close this pay period, a couple things are going to happen. This schedule of values is going to take a net value, so work completed, less retainage. It's going to plug that into our data inbox as one invoice to review. With all of that backup, it's also going to generate pay period too. So I'll go ahead and click close pay period. Failed to update pay period.
Yeah, we are in a demo environment right now. Let me double check
sense.
again, Alec. Sometimes the engineers are in the middle of pushing code when we happen to have these webinars.
And I'm opening the data inbox as well.
Okay. Let me actually just switch over for this.
I can send it back to you, Sandra.
Okay, yeah, I can share. Okay, do you guys see the construction payment tracker? Perfect. Okay, so as we were saying, that finalize pay period button closes your pay period, sends it to your data inbox where you can see the whole invoice that gets generated, any backup that's attached to that. That's where it gets included to your draw. Before I jump over there, I do want to mention a couple of other things just that I forgot to in the initialization process. So inviting your user, I was able to hop over on as a GC because I invited myself through this pop-up. So this is where you can invite your general contractor. Your general contractor will be able to view everything on your payment tracker. So you just add their name, their email address here. You can invite as many of them as you want. And that's how they will be able to see their vendor interface. So they'll get an email to whatever email address you enter. They'll be prompted to create their own account, their very own login. It's completely free for them to do so. That's where they can manage this and enter those values so that you have the ability to accept and reject. You can also invite subcontractors, and the permissioning there is a little bit different. And so that's one of the nuances that I want to highlight. And so as Alex showed earlier, when you create a scope of work and it prompts you to invite a user, that's inviting a user to a specific scope. So if I add a subcontractor, they will only be able to see the specific scopes that they're invited to. So let's say I want to invite Sapphire site work. They're only able to manage this earthwork line. And you can do that by hitting this, like Sapphire site work, opening that side panel, hitting this little yellow person icon, and then adding their name and email address here. And so then for any scope that's listed as Sapphire site work, I guess for this payment tracker, it's just this one, but they would be able to see those specific scopes. Just one nuance I really want to highlight, since it is an important distinction. We want to make sure you feel empowered to invite exactly whoever you want to see the specific parts of the payment tracker that you want, because permissioning is very important. I'm going to hop over to the data inbox now. We're going to take a look at the invoice that gets generated when you close a pay period. You can see that this is a table that gets created. This serves as your G703, and it's very similar to what that would be attached to your general contractor's pay application that they might be using another software to create. And so it really just streamlines the process where they can manage it directly in the platform and then have this get sent over to your data inbox just with a few clicks. So you can see if I zoom in, this has all your scopes of work, your descriptions, any invoice amounts, and all of the detail that your construction payment tracker had. Any backup that they've added, so their notarized pay applications, lien waivers, any photos, all of that would be attached to this as well. And then when we go back and look at your draw request, this invoice would be included in that draw. And so when you create your draw, that PDF that gets generated, all of that backup gets included as well. And same thing when you send it to your accounting systems, anything else like that, it becomes part of your invoice, part of your project. All right. Alec, am I missing anything before we switch back over to the slides?
Nope. I do believe if you actually go to the data inbox, the one that we just pushed is there now. I think it may have just taken a second in the demo environment.
Yeah.
Also, I do want to highlight exactly what that looks like, Sandra, if you can, on the ACR underneath the GMP line item, how that will actually view on your cost report. So the schedule of values that we set up will also be a drop down. Those scopes of work will be condensed into the scope line items, and you can see that completed value there.
All right, let me just get that pulled up here. So as Alec is saying, this invoice, the corresponding invoice for this, just took a second to load, but is in the construction payment tracker now. Is it this first one here?
Mhm.
Okay, awesome. Yep, so you have your tracker table. This is generated to match exactly what's on your payment tracker.
Sandra, your screen is not sharing currently.
Oh.
So want to make sure people can see it.
Good call. Is that working?
Yeah.
Okay, my bad. So yeah, this is the data inbox, same project as before. This is the payment tracker that I was referencing before, and this is any backup that they upload will just be attached to the end of their invoice. And then hopping over to the anticipated cost report, as Alec mentioned, this creates a collapsible table directly under your anticipated cost report. So you no longer have to see what's totaling up to this GMP. And you also don't have to create a million different budget lines in your project just to get that granular costs. You can now get the best of both worlds. And so you can track all those granular costs over on your construction payment tracker so that whoever is interested in that can view it. But then this will also roll up on your ACR like so, and you can see site work. I have $300,000 in my base contract. This much work was done. You get all of this information right at your fingertips, but also really easy to hide if you didn't want that information. So a lot of flexibility there.
If you want to take the chance and kind of practice what we went through today, open up a project, go ahead and create a construction payment tracker on one of those projects. Create a couple of scopes of work, fill out those contract values, and then take a whirl at inviting your general contractor as well. If you have any issues or any questions as you do that, what we walked through today, feel free to reach out to either your dedicated RETC or the concierge team. Both of them will be right there to help.